Um, it's a big jump.
Okay. Okay. Uh, I'm sure we will. What do we want to get to that first, or do we want to like pay off the unboxing Agent AI first?
Let's do the unboxing. I think it's only fair because if I get started, we might not finish. We might not get to the
That
unboxing.
I agree. I concur. Um, so you want to share your screen?
Sure. Yeah, let us do it. All
And
right.
this has been live for like, or it's been in beta for kind of alpha when I first saw it earlier
Mm-hmm.
this year. I probably I probably want to say it was like 8 months ago, and it's probably like only 2 months ago. Everything's moving so fast. But yeah, so we got this new thing that Dharmesh has been up to. Uh, maybe some announcements next week, maybe not. But yeah, so we wanted to kind of show what this is all about. It's fun to watch him talk about this, like, and see how excited he is for a marketplace for robots, essentially. Um, but he's embracing like the future that we expect to see, and it's nice to have somebody like that in our corner, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I love the fact that he, like you say, he embraces this tech and tries to use it and push it to like whatever limitations he can find for it, right? In terms of like what can we do? How do we leverage this with marketing? How do we make this more a part of what we do every day to enhance what we're already doing?
Yep, yep. So what are we seeing here?
So I mean, you guys know how Dharmesh is, so you're going to see some jokey stuff in here too because he's awesome like that. But what we're looking at is just the base page for Agent.AI, and you can see that it's a marketplace that was created by Dharmesh that was essentially inspired to be able to help people use these types of agents to get things done that they need to. And so what is the difference between these agents and like custom GPTs? We're sort of going to find out. I can't tell you for sure. Chris turned me on to this not too long ago, and I took a look at it. And yes, I have already put in an application to build one. So we'll see how that turns out. But I am seriously I'm looking forward to it mainly because of the way that it's built out. I think that his purpose is to try to get you to use these in conjunction with what you're doing on a daily basis. So being able to do that company research, or if you're doing content, even a meme maker for content is useful. Keyword research, image maker. So there are some agents that are currently usable, and then there are a lot of agents that are in training, which I think is either that they are testing or background use or something like that. That sort of like a alpha or beta mode, something of that kind, before they get released.
I
Again, I
wanted
can't
to
speak to it in detail. I'm very, very eager to see what's going to get talked about with this at Inbound, though.
I wanted to ask, like, he mentioned something last night because he was also excited by the news that you shared, um, but at the same time shared that he's working on a dad joke generator agent,
Naturally,
and he said something like he's gonna wait for the API to settle.
yes.
What was he? What was he referring to when he said that?
So, as you can imagine, when these new toys come out, everybody jumps all over them, and the amount of people who are jumping all over them rather, are it's increasing. And so, I want to say that GPT itself is up to something like 200 million like regular users on a monthly basis. So, all of those people glomming onto the model at the same time definitely puts a hurt on bandwidth. And even though they have sort of not necessarily sunset their other models, but they kind of just hid them off to the side, I think, to try to, again, increase a little bit of bandwidth to the newer stuff if they have it configured in such a way. At any rate, it's
Okay,
really just a
so
matter of too many people using it at once. and they're all just trying to use it at the same time. So the amount of errors that I was getting through text and email last night is pretty ridiculous. If you're signed up to the OpenAI playground and you have your notifications as a developer turned on, you'll know anytime that there's something going wrong with the bandwidth on the servers.
Okay, so new thing comes out, there's a new API, and everybody just jumps all over that new API, and basically settling is like, let's wait for the traffic to come back to normal, maybe. Okay, cool. So nothing to do on this. It's always interesting to understand, like, because a lot of people get I don't think confused is right the word, but like there's a lot of misunderstanding when we talk about integrations and data flowing back and forth and who's in charge of what and what is limiting out. And so I was like for moments to kind of understand that better, since I'm not somebody that's in API development every day. So
yeah, it definitely puts a hamper initially, but I think it's going to open up even today throughout the weekend. They're going to put more resources behind it.
Yeah, it's probably one of those quote unquote good problems to have, I'm sure.
Very, very much so. Yeah. Even I've noticed it a couple times with Claude, actually, about twice now, that it was inaccessible for a short amount of time. Just because it seemed like maybe, perhaps, I don't know if it was something on the back end, but it seemed like maybe it was a usage issue. I know that there's been login issues with GPT recently, and I think that has something to do with it, because I know that they are pretty strict about, like, hey, if you're not using the platform, it kind of logs you out automatically after a little bit, which makes perfect sense. But yeah, I'm looking forward to, like, we'll get into it because this is just a preview. So, like, what's coming is magnanimous,
at least.
So let's take a look at the company research agent. I want to see that, since we've been doing something along those lines, right, for XRF.
Yeah, let's actually put that same domain in. xrfcompany.com. Didn't get in that early.
No, you're good. Oh, no. Are you guys too new?
I don't think so. It's been around for a while.
Let's try something that's been around for ages. The other aspect of it is it may only be able to pull data on publicly traded companies.
Yes.
Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah.
So this is very, very, very cool, right? I mean, that's if there was actually data there.
Well, it's still loading,
but it's still
yeah. There's a progress.
Yeah, there's still more
at the top. I think that's the interesting part of these tools, is like just seeing how they all play with the user experience, like in their own ways. Like, it's fun to see them all develop, because eventually we get to just the quality of life everywhere is improved because they're all doing it that way.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't expect anything less from one of the founders of HubSpot.
No.
Focusing on the UX.
What do they do? .ai. Yeah, I mean, the retrieval is very, very fast. Site dependent. I just noticed that it's like, I mean, yeah, there's also not as many, products and things on the site itself, but I mean, the fact that it's scraping so quickly on a product, on the most product intensive website, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Honestly, this is really, really amazing. And first question I have for Dharmesh is, like, we're talking about Agent.AI, right? So we're talking about agents. Is that what's going on here? Or is this like a multi-step agent functionality similar to that of Zapier, where you're either not necessarily Zapier, but there are some like no code AI environments now where you can connect, multiple models to functionality so that you run one command like this, and it actually goes and does a series of steps to give you the output, as opposed to just the one model giving you the one output from it. I want to think that it's that case. It's like a no code solution to it.
Well, I think that's where it's like clearly out of my comfort zone when he starts saying things like this. But the fact that at the top you see agent network and human network, it's like he alludes to this, like agents are going to be able to just network amongst themselves without humans telling them which agents they're supposed to be using, for tasks.
Yeah.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah. It is actually going to get to be. Now, I would hope that he's building the agent network with that framework that you just mentioned. I think, in the future, that is what is going to be the case, right? So like currently, to explain the difference between the two for people who may not know, what we use now is singular agent. So, ChatGPT, even, the latest model, Claude, any of these models that you're using, they're singular agent models, meaning that you give them a task and they give you the output. You can somewhat give them multiple tasks to do, but it has to be along the same line of what you're already working on. So if you were asking it to write something for you, you might be able to get GPT to do two things that it can do, which would be write something and then create an image for you. But that's about as far as it's going to go. You definitely can't do something like, hey, write this email and send it for me to this person. You can kind of get that functionality out of a custom GPT with actions, but that's still something separate from the model that's not built in. What's coming down the line is, multi-agent capability. That's essentially what it's called. And the difference between that and what you have now is, let's put it on a cell phone level. Now you can ask Siri or Google for pricing for an airline or pricing to go somewhere. You might even be able to add that to your calendar. You could probably voice your way through all of those steps, but once this next version hits, you will literally be able to say, hey, I think I want to go to Tahiti next week. Can you book a flight for me and make all the arrangements? And it'll go online to Expedia or wherever. It'll find you your booking accommodations. It'll book the flight for you using your payment information. It'll book your rental car, your hotel, put your itinerary together, and then just send all of that to you in an email. Right? Like that's the level of functionality, like one sentence, one button. Yeah. Right. So it's definitely going to get there. It's a matter of when. And yes, I would love it if this platform was meant for just that you could use any one agent as the base, right? Like it's very much like when we're working in custom reporting and we use one object as the base and then the rest of them build off of that, right? I think it might be the same way here where, okay, you want to use web page copy editor, but you might need some image functionality as well. So you might want to pull in an example image, or as you're writing the copy, you might need keyword research, right? So rather than having so many different agents that you have to use individually, you just have the one base and then you can pull in the help from the rest of them. It's somewhat similar to when GPT, I think, I almost forgot that it had that functionality entirely. GPT-4 has the mention functionality where you can mention another custom model to pull it into the window and help you to complete things.
Oh, wow.
So that's similar. That's almost similar to this multi-agent functionality where you can just call the model that you need to the conversation and execute the action.
Right. But you still need to do it yourself. Whereas, where there'll be a feature where instead of GPT telling me what I need to do the thing I know it's capable of, it's like, hey, let me bring in this buddy. So is the VA industry like done?
Well,
VA meaning virtual assistants, for anybody that
Yeah.
doesn't know that.
Um,
Because basically that
kind
is
of.
a virtual assistant agent that then you rely on to do all the other agent stuff. Because that's why you still need like a human, because you can't rely on the single thing to say, like, even something as simple as write the copy and then send the email, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, and we're getting to. So, I mean, it is worth discussing both in tandem, because last week we discussed that there's the breakthrough in terms of accuracy on the models, that it's, now the capability of getting to 100% accuracy exists. And if you have a conversation with the latest model of GPT, there is some really, really interesting stuff that goes on, because the latest model, what it does is it introduces the pattern of thought, and it also has chain of thought reasoning as a method of completion for the answer. So it will actually show you the steps that it's thinking through in order to get you the final output. It's interesting to me because of the fact that some of the stuff lines up, some of it doesn't. It's weird to see what's going on back there. But long story short, as these things advance and as the models get more advanced, the underlying technology goes right along with it. What everybody should understand is that how these models function is they're based on, the technology that exists in a server over here, and the model is over here, and the two are connected via API key. So as soon as you get the new model's API key, you just plug that in and your app is automatically upgraded. Right? All the new intelligence, all the new functionality, right? Now, maybe there's some additional modality that exists that you might have to input and update your code a little bit to have some additional functionality. But otherwise, all the base functionality is automatically upgraded as soon as you swap out the API key. So I'm really looking forward to like what this platform is going to be capable with that level of reasoning and being able to think through the problems that it's being asked and think through the queries that it's being given.
So that means, and I've always been curious about that. So thank you for describing that, because that also means whenever there's anything in HubSpot that is reliant on GPT, it's not much work for HubSpot to just be like, bam, now it's upgraded too, right?
Yeah.
So we should be like actively monitoring, like if we're leveraging AI anywhere off of these, like the well-known tools like ChatGPT, like we should be paying attention to what's happening with those tools, because it likely is going to impact, the other tools we might be leveraging.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When you think about most of the AI tools that are out there, the majority of them run off of ChatGPT systems, right? They run off of ChatGPT's API. So it's absolutely going to be the case where now that this new model is dropped, you can expect in the coming weeks to see just a ton of announcements about new features and capabilities with other applications that leverage GPT. And I'm sure that they're, again, like they're foaming at the mouth waiting to get to it as well.
And so what we're seeing here is that likely an outcome of the unsettled API.
It could be. Could very well be.
Yeah.
Let's give her another.
I mean, I love this use case example.
Right. This is amazing because a client of mine had this exact same question during our engagement. Is like, what do you think of our product pages in terms of like the layout and how it looks to like just an average user? Because I've never been to their site or anything like that. So they were like, how does it appear to you? And it's like, well, I don't really, I'm a purchaser. As long as the product's there with the price and everything, I'm good. But it's great to be able to have this, type of insight.
I love section 2. Things that are right
about the page.
Page. Like, not things that are good, things that are correct. Like
yes.
They've executed the strategy correctly.
Right. Which is, it's awesome, right? Because
Oh, it's
clients
okay to
do
have
say
a
that all the
take,
time.
right?
Yeah, they're
Like,
like, oh, don't beat me up over it. And it's like, no, like you did this good and you did that good, right?
right. Um, but this is like the other reason I love this example is, there's still so many companies. I'm a big fan of the Ask You Answer. That still do not talk about pricing on their website, and like especially in the manufacturing space. This is the game you have to play now, and if you like, you can choose not to play it, but then understand that these AI tools are not going to find you. They're not going to serve you up. And nobody's going to accept the fact that they need to call you to get all the information like this. In those cases, in a lot of those cases, especially industry, nobody else in your space is doing it either. So the amount of leverage and differentiation you can get just from like one single pricing page here. I've even seen the word, just having the word price, right, on the product page, as disingenuous as it might be when they get there and they don't find the price. Like immediate, like SEO jumps in the past. Now it's going to be immediate, like visibility, in these AI tools.
Yeah.
Do we have a name for that yet, by the way? Is it like AEIO or like AIEO? Like what is replacing SEO in terms of AI?
I mean, I guess it would be AIEO, right? Or AI SEO. Yeah, it would be AI SEO.
Is it just AI SEO? We're still considering it a search. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, like and what's crazy, right, is that I think not in Agent.AI, but I want to say within HubSpot, that's actually been a feature that was released recently, was a method for you to be able to rank your site within HubSpot according to where it falls on AI search engines, right? So
right.
that's now become the new game. And to that point, and to your to the episode yesterday, it's a matter of, okay, let's increase awareness through storytelling, through information, through empowering customers, right? Because the name of the game with AI, guys, is contribution and proper content. So all it cares about is the best possible answer to solve for the solution, or the series of answers to solve for the solution. So when it comes to how am I going to rank this, that, or the other, you have to become relevant. Relevancy is what is now most important. If you are not relevant to the question that's being asked, then you're probably not going to get ranked. Now, I don't know the internal mechanics, right? We'll find out next week at Inbound. But all I can say is, at least from a high level perspective, from what I can tell, relevancy is the new currency for SEO, and your content needs to matter to the question that's being asked. And it's definitely not going to be a keyword thing anymore, because the difference between the two is that AI is actually reading your entire content and reading your entire page. Before, it was just something that was picking up tags that might have been put in there, right?
It was man-made.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Google's algorithm. And that's where, like, we don't, like, the tricks are gone. Like, don't overthink it. Just like if you were at an event, like if I was at Inbound next week and I didn't know you and you came to my booth and I like started talking to you about stuff you didn't care anything about, you're like, all right, see you later. Like it's just like in person. If you were to start talking to somebody that was irrelevant or not interesting, or fake, and you start lying, like we can feel all those things. And that's why there's no tricks. Just be present and bring value. Like just like you're at one of those shows. Like you can be there, but if you're not talking to anybody, you're not sharing information, you want everybody to like fill out the form to get any information, right? They're not doing that. At the same time, you could be, you see those tables where there's just a shit ton of stuff on the table like just take anything you want for free, and
Mhm.
nobody's there like to ask questions, right? Like nobody's
Yep.
present. It's like, how valuable is that? You're not going to get anything. Okay, great. I got my stress ball, you know, but I didn't like, I'm not connecting it to you anymore. So like, you're not going to get the value back from that. So it's like, can we stop? Again, no easy buttons. Don't overthink it. Just show up. That's job one right now. Like if you know the customers are looking for this stuff in new places, like just show up. There's no tricks anymore, and I'm super happy about it. That's why it's like you need to fully understand what's happening in this transition right now. Like uh, people are not crazy when they talk about. I think Marcus Sheridan's talk is like the post Google apocalypse or something like that. This is a new era, like the Google motion of always worrying about SEO and marketing attribution, Google Ads, always on edge about the new algorithm. We're done. We're done with that.
Right. I'm wondering what this snippet like ability is.
Save to snippet. This is where it's like the cool thing about knowing when Dharmesh is working on stuff. You're like, okay, what exactly? Something is very likely to come over to HubSpot at some point. Like I remember that transition, like when
Super
ChatSpot
cool.
first started like arriving, and he's like, "Yeah, I finally built it last night." It's like, "Oh, this is cool," and then you start seeing it show up in HubSpot proper, and like it's fun to think about that, and like just always comes back to like the value of HubSpot, like knowing that things like that are in place, and he's just gonna bring value because he can, because he
Yep.
likes doing it, because it's a cool
Yep.
thing to do, right?
Yeah. I love that about him, and I love that about the brand in general, that it's about community, and it's about like how do we keep things together despite like all the changes, all the advancements, and all of that. How do we still like keep it together, keep it human centric, let's say, as best we can.
Well, as you say that, like I was gonna say, like I remember him announcing Connect.com, and now he's literally focused on a community for AI agents. Like is what we're
Yeah,
a little bit of what we're looking at here.
I was
It's like,
wondering like where that one was kind of a miss to me. Was like, okay, you have the connection to X and you have the connect, which would go to your HubSpot server, but where is the like connect.com like profile connection, or like where's the link between those two things? I think he's doing a great job with putting a lot of this together, but to your point, it's a little disconnected in that
right.
sense.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that he has some plans to jump from one to the other, so that we do have that ability. I mean, again, like we have Connect, but now you have this human network aspect that's built into it as well, where it's it's a miniature LinkedIn.
Humans.
Yeah.
Nice beta.
Right. Right. Well, and so that's what's interesting is like there's 99,000 people signed up, which not very surprising to me, to be honest.
Right.
Given how many HubSpot just users there are versus advocates, partners, all of it. And what I like is that it's this sort of like knockoff LinkedIn. So you're very used to the layout of it and how things work, and it's actually pulling in LinkedIn data, something that I'm looking to do with an app that I'm putting together. And it's like, so I'm not sure what the intention here is outside of there's no chat built into it, so there's no like interconnection aspect happening there, but at least you can see a little bit more about whoever is creating the various agents. what they might be associated with or agents that they might be creating and working on. So it's kind of crazy to see this huge list going on.
Yeah. And you'd think this is where it's like, sometimes HubSpot definitely leads the way and does things better. But other times they're just like every other big company where you have lots of people working on different things. And I would love to think that if I know that the team is focused on building out and leveraging Connect.com more, that whatever very Connect.com similar outcome like thing is being worked on over here would just plug in to Connect.com. But that's where you got different product managers working on different stuff. It doesn't always work out that way, but that would be cool. Like it's fun to see those kinds of innovations come together, because that's where like moving from creating new all the time to just curation of all the stuff that already exists in better ways. I'm a huge fan of that because there's so much value being built in silos. There has been forever. And now we just got to find ways to connect the dots, in ways that we haven't before. So that's what we're seeing here. We're just bringing information into a better, curated space, basically.
Yep. Yeah. And I would hope that, like, it all gets folded in, right? So I think down the road, what you can expect to see is that ChatSpot essentially swallows up all the capability that's going to be here. I think that's where you run into the one bot to solve them all type issue. But for now, I think this is amazing. And I think it's definitely something that is very leverageable for pretty much anybody in the marketing space currently. If you don't know about this and you don't know about using these agents, they're extremely, I mean, just from the little bit that we've been playing around with it, they're definitely not just useful, but pretty seriously powerful.
Oh man, website domain valuation expert. Interesting. So this would be like new or even existing, I guess.
I think it would be for existing.
Just existing. Okay.
Let's see.
And this is the kind of stuff like my mind immediately goes to like,
wow, look at that, buddy. Look at that. Who knew?
Right? These are the kind of little things that if marketers can kind of just like start connecting dots like this for the leadership teams and show like our competitor value is this, ours is this. This is why we need to care about the website, right? This is why we can't just phone it in and expect everybody to call the sales team, right? This digital stuff matters. These digital assets matter. And I've even been surprised at like the private equity level, how much this stuff gets missed, I think.
I have to. I can't help it.
So what are we doing here?
It's just one of the things that I do is that I like to use one model to use another. So it's like, okay, we have this data, right? But how do we leverage this? How could we leverage it? In what way? Right? Maybe you don't, maybe you know, maybe you don't know. So all I did was copy paste the data over to GPT and then ask it, what can you infer from the following data? Now we're using the new O1 Mini just to save a little bit of time on the thought process, but you can see that
thought for 6 seconds.
Now it actually thought through the issue for a little bit of time, breaking down the data into what it was,
showing the
analyzing
work.
valuations. Yeah.
It's like literally open book, folks. Like stop doubting what's happening. It does feel pretty magical, but It's all math.
So whereas you're
information.
getting the raw numbers here and the raw values here, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. What's really cool is that within the span of a minute, we were able to take the data from that, throw it in here, and then see strengths and weaknesses, which would have taken us some time to evaluate. Market presence would have taken some time to evaluate. Market budget strengths and weaknesses, perceived value strengths and weaknesses,
Crisis resilience.
recommendations for enhancing the domain value. Right. And so let's see. I don't know what
is justified based on its technical strengths and market conditions. Now, this is the part where I think people still aren't getting it compared to, this is why SEO is going away, or like the Google search workflow, let's say, is going away. Because now, like, instead of clicking on the link and then needing to draw all the insights myself and then do another search, we're in a conversation now, and this is research. I'm asking different questions, because even like within the chat, like I did that this morning, setting up a Claude project, and I gave it some learning data, some files, some text to learn from. And then I wanted to give it some custom instructions. And then I was just like, hey, Claude, if I want you to do this, what should those custom instructions be? And it was like 1,000 times better than what I would have like typed in, right? I was like, damn, that's really good. And then for the first time, I actually took it up on its offer of, do you want to
let me do that for you?
Like, are these good, or should I review for improvements or gaps? And then it added 10 more, and they were all great. And it's like, just that, like, you don't, and you shouldn't, no matter how good it is, like, accept that initial, result. And I think that's really, as I'm talking about it out loud, that's a habitual thing that we're going to have to change, because we're so used to just be like, okay, those are the results. Like, now I'm.
But see, that's the crazy part, right? Is while we sit there in the in-between doing that, they are on the other side actually engineering this stuff to be able to do that, right? Like, they realize that we want the one-stop shop, and so they're trying to build the one-stop shop. And at the same time, like, yeah, we're striving for it, but it's, look, you're 1,000% right, because at the end of the day, no matter what we input, no matter what gets output, it'll never matter. You're always going to read it over. I really don't think, unless it's like some sort of standard protocol type thing, I can't think of off the top of my head too many things, like just even one. I really can't think of one off the top of my head that I've copy pasted outside of code. So that's what I mean. Like, that's a technical thing that you don't have to visually review. Maybe coders do, but there's error checking. So I don't. Right. Like, I'll just run it and then I'll copy paste the error and it'll figure it out. But outside of that, if it's written content that I'm giving to somebody else, I actually had a very interesting conundrum this past weekend, because my niece was asking me for advice. She was very nervous about switching to a new school, and she was asking me for advice on, how to not think about it too much and how to not be nervous about it. And to be honest, I had no real advice beyond, just, don't be nervous. Like, don't worry about it.
I'd be freaking out if I were you.
I'm too adult, and I've faced too many challenges, and to me, it's too much of a simple thing, right? So, internally, I'm just like, wow, do I? This is that point for me. A lot of people would probably think that I have no limitation on like where and when I'm willing to use AI for stuff, but that's where I decided was my limitation. Was like, okay, if somebody is asking me for my personal advice on something, I'm not going to go to a model to try to create that solution or to even help me reword the solution. They're asking my advice on this, right? So like that's where I can draw that distinction and be like, okay, well, here's where the model needs to do work and here's where I need to do work, right? If it's something that needs to sound like it came from me, then I need to review it. I need to look at it. It needs to have my seal of approval on it. Whereas if it's something that's like, you know, again, it's code, right? That's just something I'm running. It's something I'm doing. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a good point, because it's like, as much as I want to rail against like AI video, like 100% AI avatar, and like, you know, whether or not you should have that on a web page and expect like a good result, right? Because when you know that we can sense that it's AI right away, there's still, as I tried to open up to it, it's like you find those moments in the process, or you dig into the process and understand when you need black and white information and no opinion. That's when you use those things. That's when they will be value. So I think always evaluating, you know, the context of what you're trying to accomplish is, you know, just like every other marketing task in the history of marketing tasks, still important.
Yep.
Understand the goal and the context.
Yep. Very much so. So as we're kind of winding down, what I really wanted to hit on just from the preview of this, just before I even start, figure out a positive note to end on, because this one might not be. Yeah. So an interesting discussion started with my brother and I yesterday, and he let me know, which isn't necessarily shocking news to me, but he let me know about friends of his that they are being let go from their programming positions and their software engineer positions, but then they are being rehired back at a much lower pay rate, at a much lower salary. And he was wondering, you know, how and why, like what would be the root cause of this. And this is where like people need to pay attention and sort of, you know, keep your head from hitting the ground too hard, because if you don't, then these types of things happen, and it's difficult to predict where and when it might hit you. There have been several talks in the last couple of weeks, one by Eric Schmidt, former CEO for Google, and one by Mustafa Suleyman, who is the CEO for or head project leader, maybe both, probably both, for Google DeepMind. And in both discussions, and even one of the leaders at Amazon said the exact same thing, that, you know, coding and being a software engineer, like that is going to become a thing of the past, because we are living digitally, and because the largest barricade to that life is coding. It's going to get removed. It's the natural progression in order to allow us as a whole to move forward. And I thought back about the instance in the last election, I think, or maybe the one before, where people were talking about coal miners and that coal mines would be getting shut down, and hashtag started that was hashtag learn to code, and was used against people like that. Yeah, to tell them like, hey, you need to learn to code. And I just find it ironically hilarious now that miners can turn around and say, don't need to. Yeah. Hashtag ChatGPT, right? Like, it's this thing where that barrier's been removed. So when you lay it out across the landscape, it looks like, hey, this job that required a lot of technical know-how, that we used to pay for that technical knowledge, we used to pay for that skill and the years of experience, that's now been devastated by an application that an 8-year-old could use to write seriously complicated software. So we started with, when the launch happened, we started with, how do we restructure pricing for time now that we can save time on projects that we're working on? Now we are stuck with, how do we restructure job pay for related job categories? And I'm telling you, programming is just the beginning. I know that marketing is going to be next. There are aspects of marketing that, the time gets completely erased by these types of technologies. And it's something to think about, right?
Yeah. And definitely not bury your head in the sand,
No,
because that's not going to help anybody. And
no.
that's where we're going to be. I mean, hopefully people realize that's why we're talking about this stuff every week, is because definitely the first step is awareness. But even in the situation you described, and this is where it's been super fun and interesting over the years to sit on the wall between like marketing consulting industry and industrial manufacturing, where you just see like the same plays on either side just have radically different price points, based on the differences between supply and demand and competition. And if you're in SaaS and the leadership is super savvy about situations like that, there's lots of people still looking for help when it comes to AI. And you could easily, like, there are going to be roles that are like AI consulting and, AI management, like brand new roles where, you're going to have a big impact. And that's where, like, I've been listening to the book 10x is easier than 2x by the guys who did The Gap and the Gain. And it was written last year. And this recent chapter has been about like how like wealth, the difference between wealth and like money, basically.
Right.
And like they gave an example, like you can own like a 1970 like rusted out, beat up car, and you can spend the whole summer, you know, I'm obviously not a car guy, but
Due to restoration.
restoration, making it look brand new. And you have created wealth in that moment because now you can sell it for a value it was not before. And that value did not exist in the world until you put your time and effort into it. And then the next example they gave was software developers. And it's like,
oh God,
it's like, that used to be the thing. And that's where, like, in this scope of like be present and bring value, like the closer your value is to black and white ones and zeros, like physics, math, like principles, that like laws of nature, all that stuff. Like I started thinking about engineering aspects. Like you got to find other ways to start creating value and bringing value. And there are a ton of other ways now because there's a lot of creativity, available to you if you kind of allow yourself to, maybe play with some of these rules that we haven't been able to play with before because there was a lot of risk involved and you didn't have time to, test out the 10 different ways that now we can test them out like nothing. And that's the kind of stuff, like, if AI thinks it's right on the first try, there's no reason for it to try 10 more times unless you tell it to, right? And like, what are we going to find when we do that? And so there's still a lot of opportunity. It's just new spaces are created. I do think it's going to be interesting how regulation and government plays a role, because this is one of those places, in my opinion, where, like, if some role of the government is to take care of the people, and we just have, vast areas of the country or industries just falling away, like expecting them all to just like pick up a new skill that they've never done before without any help. Like, yeah, that would be great in principle, but not how it works usually, especially when you have leadership getting away with things like letting you go and then hiring you back for less.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting times for sure. None of this is slowing down either.
No. If anything, it's only getting bigger, stronger, faster all the time.
Yeah.
So what I want to see is what it can do with the company information that you get as a result. I don't know how well it's going to be able to understand the relationship on the copy paste.
This is super interesting. This thought for a couple seconds.
Yeah,
it's
the
like, by
O1
the
Mini.
way, this is what I did in seconds.
Yeah. So that's what's interesting, right? Is here's what it did in a couple seconds. It was just a very quick analysis, right? But look at the output that it's still doing right now, actually. Company overview, right? Product and pricing analysis, pricing insights.
And this is where it's like that industry. This is one of those spots where we know that that industry does not put pricing on their websites. So it's just like, oh, blue ocean. Like, you're the only one with price on it. You're showing up here. And
does this line up?
With the main product. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where, like, there's multiple business units. The prime time is the instruments on the site. I'm going to be focused on reference materials, which is like one of the smaller business units, like that's hundreds of dollars, right, compared to the $20,000, instruments. So this is going to be, again, like, this highlights the challenge, much, much faster than like, oh, we're going to put the website up and then understand how human behavior or buyer behavior, are they seeing the web pages? Are we clear? Right? All of these things that we used to have to test and iterate on only on the basis of human beings, testing and checking it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just there for us. Like, we can test and iterate just so much faster now.
It's something else. And so this is the difference between the mini and the regular preview model. So the regular preview model took 16 seconds to think about it, identified actionable insights, pulled them together, ensuring accuracy and neutrality is key, analyzing the data, understanding the firm's focus, assessing the context, and then analyzing the distinctiveness.
Yeah. Wow, this is like, why wouldn't you?
Right.
At this point, right?
Right.
Like,
and it's like that's the only thing. Oh, let's see if
yeah, and like, what we expect to happen is, imagine doing all of this like on the deal or on the contact record, like right in the workflow. They just called up, right? You just got a call. Like, people are still gonna use the phone. Sorry. But now you have the record right there. And again, like I've seen George do on our calls, like, he takes questions real time, puts them into the GPT, helps get the answer. Like, that's where HubSpot is going when they talk about AI tools and AI agents everywhere. It's like, how do we fill those gaps? If we know that convenience and speed to response is one of the most important factors of winning business, like, we can handle that now. Doesn't mean it's press button go. You still need somebody at the helm that maybe doesn't say the wrong thing, and can understand context at this point, at least. But now that person can handle that much more and move that much faster and provide that much better service. right? More consistent, service, more consistent experiences when they're
Yeah.
getting that kind of infrastructure, set up around them.
And it's funny because I was talking to someone earlier this week, and they were saying like, "Oh, we're having issues with getting sales to come up with the BOFU question."
All right. I guess we're probably going to listen to the signs there. I'll see if he comes back. Some technical difficulties, or maybe with the share button and the leave button right next to each other. Easy to hit the wrong one. But yeah, exciting stuff. We're hoping that you guys get value out of this. Please share feedback. This is moving even faster than the HubSpot product. So hopefully you guys are getting value out of this activity. And we're going to be at Inbound next week, hanging out with George B. Thomas and Danielle Urban on Thursday night. And
Apologies about that.
All good. It happens. I was just telling the people about what we're doing with George and Danielle on Thursday night next week. Inbound late night. I just can't say that without mentioning the fact that it's at 5 p.m. and I don't know why it's called late night. It's a recap session, effectively, right? George has been doing it for a few years at least, and looks like a cool setup this year. Got a like a news desk. He's doing it both Wednesday and Thursday, and we get to join him on Thursday, right before the big old supered after party bash.
Yep.
And just it's gonna be an exciting year. This is my second time. But you and I have been talking about like how much live can we do? Can we really push that boundary? And it's really like whatever the bandwidth gods allow for is what we're gonna do. But even when that's not around, I'm sure we'll be doing some recorded stuff because there's some big things expected next week, and it's going to be very exciting. So the sooner we can jump on that and start sharing information, that's what we want to be doing, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we'll be there. If you guys are going to be there, let us know. A lot of people sharing information on Sprocketeer and Connect.com right now. There's a couple spaces to share, when you get in, when you get out. I think trying to prioritize meeting up with people is a good idea because it's really easy to just lock into all the sessions.
Use your meeting links. Clement did me a solid on that, and now that I've got all of my stuff on my calendar, just send somebody your HubSpot meeting link.
Yep.
And they can book whatever the times are in between.
Yeah, super powerful. The kind of we'll catch you, catch as catch can at this super busy event. Not going to work out for you if that's everybody, because when you say that to 20 people, good luck meeting up with five of them.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I guess in that case, the opportunities for AI, I think, are getting clearer every day. So we'll focus on next week. For those of you attending and those of you not, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff to share on LinkedIn. I'm sure LinkedIn's gonna explode a little bit next week. But if you're going, find those opportunities to meet up with people. And what we're doing at Inbound is all about growing. So let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.